What's up, Previews World? Troy Jeffrey Allen here, and I'm hanging out with Adam Warren, artist and creator of Empowered, of course, and a number of other great titles. And thanks for hanging out with us, man.
Yeah, sure.
I appreciate it. So this is really cool because we've been trying to do more of these like retrospectives, like
Right.
you know, not so much like doing like written interviews are fun and all, but like
Right.
to sit down with a creator, talk
Right.
about their process,
Okay.
talk about the genesis of like some of their great creations,
Right.
but also how they got into comics as a fan and also as creators.
Right.
So I want to start with that first and foremost.
Okay.
Like, how did you get into comic books as a fan, or manga as a fan, or both?
Well, actually, yeah, comics came long before manga for me because I actually learned how to read off of wildly overscripted kind of 50s reprints of cowboy comics from Marvel, which
Like
were
Rawhide Kid and
yeah, they were incredibly wordy back then, particularly like the Two Gun Kid reprints of old 50s stuff. So I actually learned how to read. You had to because they were so text heavy.
Yeah,
And,
right.
And actually, I spent my early childhood. I mainly read a lot of Kirby reprints of Fantastic Four and Thor.
Yeah.
And my earliest influences were Kirby and Mishima and George Tuska. And
Okay.
I kind of got out of it in junior high, but then when I was in high school in the 80s, the alternative comic scene kind of blew up.
Okay, right.
And books like Moore Bissett, Toddleman Veach on Swamp Thing,
yeah.
and Howard Chaykin's American Flag in particular was really kind of blew my mind. It sort of opened.
It was for a lot of people. I definitely.
yeah.
That's what I hear a lot of. Yeah.
Yeah, it is really hard to explain how much of a shock both those books were. Like there was just nothing like it. A lot of the books of that scene were really kind of bold and striking, and made me want to attempt to do comics for a living. So I went to the Joe Kubert School of Cartoon and Graphic Art in scenic Dover, New Jersey. About midway through first year, I realized I'd made a dire mistake.
Oh, really?
Yes, while I was drawing an assignment of the Phantom riding an elephant for one of my classes, and realized I hate this crap. Like this, I can't imagine spending the rest of my life cranking out this something. This sort of that I don't give a crap about, that there's no future in it. But then on February vacation from the school, a friend loaned me a couple tapes of anime, of Rumiko Takahashi's Urusa Yatsura, the anime version, and the Dirty Pair anime. And when I saw that once again, just as the alternative comic scene, it struck me years earlier. This struck me much more forcefully, and like. I was like, this is a way of art and a way of storytelling that's the kind of thing I could get into. That actually it completely changed my point of view on doing comics or being in school for that matter. Just the approach to storytelling was so much more forceful and dynamic and not kind of the same. Much in the same way as Swamp Thing and American Flag, it struck me back then. A few major projects had come out, like Dark Knight and Watchmen were coming out, but most of the other comics I was reading just didn't engage me. And even, I have to say, even some of the stuff that was kind of blowing up in the late '80s, I was already kind of not as engaged on, and it mainly had to do with their approach to storytelling was so different, and the fact that one of the earliest manga that hit me when I switched from anime, which I still watched for a couple of years, but then I began getting into manga, which is more appropriate to what I was going to do for a living, and I encountered Otomo Katsuhiro's Akira, and like that was so different than anything I had ever seen. They had such a different approach of using the page count and really getting into sort of kind of epic flow of storytelling. That was the kind of thing that really wasn't done much or at all in American comics, just because of the difference in format for the most part. But yeah, believe me, those encountering those first few volumes at the Kinokuniya bookstore in New York, just a series of different manga that kind of struck me in different ways. Like the Rumiko Takahashi's kind of gonzo sense of humor was so. Was so unlike anything I'd ever seen before, and even though a lot of her work is heavily rooted in Japanese folklore, it's still quite understandable to someone without that background. And and just that kind of it was so off the wall and sort of refreshing that it kind of opened my mind to different things you could do with comics.
It's so exciting and new, I'm sure, for like an American creator.
Yeah,
right.
But in a way, I am kind of glad that I came up from a different background. That my earliest influences were Kirby and Mishima, because in some ways you can kind of see that or some people can see it at least in my artwork. There's still echoes of those guys in it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I'm not like kind of purely manga based. So I kind of like that. And it did work out, but it shouldn't have worked out.
Right,
It was an insane series of coincidences, particularly before the internet,
Right.
where these are the kind of contacts were incredibly unlikely, but it actually happened.